Well, Mike, we're going to talk about a Francis Ford Coppola movie.
That's right, Jay. 1992's Dracula. And coincidentally, we happen to have a bottle of Coppola wine. Now, a lot of you may not know this, but Francis Ford Coppola has his own winery in Northern California. Mm-hmm. And this is a beautiful bottle of Pinot Noir, vintage 2015. Let's crack this baby open.
Sure, let's do it.
Have a sip.
Absolutely. And just so we're clear, we've mentioned this in the past, we don't do paid sponsorships. This isn't a sponsorship here. We just really wanted to try out the Coppola wine.
Well, I've had it before, of course.
Oh, okay, good for you. But if you're interested in picking up your own Coppola wine, here's the website address, and if you go to the website, they have all these different varieties. They know what they're doing there at the Coppola winery. Oh, this looks great, yeah. Oh, what a lovely bouquet. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking raspberries, tea leaves, and maybe some rose petals. Yeah.
Yeah, so just so you know, you could pick up this lovely wine and many more at thefamilycoppola.com. If you're 21 and older.
Of course.
Of course. Yes. Cheers, Jay.
Cheers.
Oh,
Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Oh,
where'd you get this at the grocery store?
Oh, more like an ass bouquet. Ugh. It's the worst fucking thing I've ever tasted. Ugh.
Oh, God.
I think I'm gonna puke.
We're gonna have to edit this out.
We're gonna cut this all out.
Can you cut this out?
We don't want to show that label, right?
God. Yeah, Bill, can you cut this out? We'll move the wine glasses, but can you cut all this out? Rescind the contract. Tell Francis we're out. Tell him we're out. We don't need his $50.
Hello and welcome to another review. Today we're talking about the 1992 film Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Stokers.
Oh, everyone always says strokers. But we're talking about this movie, oddly enough, it was just kind of a spur-of-the-moment idea because some 10-year-old YouTube video just got recently sucked up into the algorithm, and it was supposedly Francis Ford Coppola and Gary Oldman arguing on the set of Dracula.
If you could give me a position, as it were.
Your entrance position is where you come right in, where you were coming in. You come in right.
Where it's just at the top of the stairs.
You're as equally below him as you were above him.
I'm waiting for Keanu. What I'm doing is waiting for Keanu because I can stop.
What are you waiting for Keanu for? Keanu never does anything. You just walk right out of the thing.
I may have watched the video where Tom Cruise screams at everybody about coronavirus, and maybe that algorithm triggered it.
Oh, he's going to be screaming again soon here. I can't wait for that audio to leak.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I think watching that video may have triggered it, and then I watched it, and then I think you saw it. I sent it to you. I said, look, Jay, Gary Oldman kind of got mad and walked away.
There's never disagreements on movie sets, so that's just a scandalous piece of video.
It's like, Gary, you got to come in and you got to stop at the top of the stairs and look around. And then Gary Oldman's like, why don't I walk down the stairs? You got to stop at the top of the stairs, Gary. And he's like, whatever. And he walked away. He was just heading to the craft service table or something. And then that was like a shocking argument.
I guess.
Yeah, but hey, we all know about clickbait.
That's true.
That's the title.
But that's the funny thing is it's like a 10-year-old video that just recently, for whatever reason, got sucked up into YouTube's mysterious algorithm. And we watched it and we said, hey, Dracula.
Love it. Dead and loving it. I love it.
Let's not talk about Dracula Dead and loving it. This movie kind of inspired, there was a revival in the 90s of, after this came out, then there was the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, trying to do these like classy, big budget kind of reimaginings of these old horror properties.
The Anne Rice novels.
Yeah, that was then the rise of, what was that movie? The Interview with the Vampire?
And subsequent sequels. There's so many things I love about this movie. And there's a couple things I don't. But
This is a filmmaker's movie.
Yes.
If you're into the art of filmmaking and especially practical effects, in-camera trickery, this movie's all about that.
right, and from what I understand, Francis Ford Coppola made this because American Zoetrope, his film company, was going into bankruptcy.
The last few movies he had done were kind of duds. They did not do very well, and his company was not in good shape. And so I mean, these were done for commercial reasons. He needed to make some money. So he made Godfather 3 in 1990, and then followed it up immediately with this as an attempt to kind of bring some life back to his company and bring in some money for a change.
Yes, and I read that effort was successful despite being not a critical box office smash hit.
Yeah, I don't really know what the reception to this movie was. I didn't really pay attention to it at the time. Everyone, of course, makes fun of Godfather 3, which I've still never seen. But I think it's one of those movies that now people are like, yeah, in comparison to the first two, it's not very good. But as its own thing, like, it's not the worst. But there is a connection in that the most famous aspect of Godfather 3 is that his daughter, Sofia Coppola, gives one of the worst performances of all time. But that part was originally supposed to be played by Winona Ryder, who had to drop out, but they kept in touch, and she gave Francis Ford Coppola the script of Dracula. And was like, hey, how about this? So that was the 1-2 punch, Godfather 3 and this. And then Francis Ford Coppola, I guess he just said, fuck it, I'm gonna make weird shit now. I kind of like, because he comes from that sort of the new film school group of like him and Brian De Palma and George Lucas, of course. And I kind of like in his older years, Francis Ford Coppola is actually doing what George Lucas has always said he's going to do, which is make these weird little personal movies where he's not concerned about box office or the commercial appeal of it.
As exemplified in Twixt, one of the worst things I've ever seen.
I've never seen Twixt.
But hey, you know, let him do his thing.
He's earned it.
And I will never blame George Lucas for not fulfilling his promise of making personal films because, shit, if I was 78 years old and had $100 billion, I wouldn't go through the big fucking pain in the ass of making movies anymore. I would just lay on a hammock, drinking Bloody Marys all afternoon. And then have my personal chef make me dinner to repeat the process the next day. Tell me about Dracula.
If I had a complaint about it, though, it's that it is a horror film, and at no point is it ever scary. It's too big. It's too kind of bombastic and like operatic and over the top. It never takes any like moments to get quiet and creepy.
That is the longest way to say Keanu Reeves I've ever heard.
That's a whole other topic.
The bombasticity? Bombacity?
Yes.
Bombasticness? Webster?
Mr. Bombastic.
Help me out. That's what I love about it.
Oh, I do too. I'm just saying, as a horror film, it is not scary, but it's big.
No, it's a love story.
Which is not in the book. That's one of the deviations.
No,
so it's interesting to talk about. It's like, I don't know. To me, this is like the definitive adaptation of Dracula. I haven't seen all of them. There's been a million of them, but I've seen a fair amount. And this is the one that it has some deviations, but it does follow pretty closely to the book, especially the narrative device of all the different, we get journal entries and captain's logs and all that stuff.
Oh, well, we'll get into the details, but just the overall big picture, like watching this, like, again, rewatched it. I rewatched it a couple months ago, actually. I was like, nice Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I fucking love this movie. I'm gonna watch this on Blu-ray, because I haven't seen it in, a long time since before then, but I kept picturing like the 90s movie trailer.
Oh.
And he's loved before, but now he's back to try to find love again.
Is this an actual trailer that's like that?
No,
Oh, okay.
The trailer is quality. It has Anthony Hopkins doing the voiceover instead of trailer voice guy, but I pictured it like as a wacky romantic comedy, because that's what it is. It's a love story. It's an epic love story, and it's Dracula as a sympathetic kind of protagonist. That you're not sure if you hate him or like him. And that's the unique take on this.
Yeah.
is, and I think that's also kind of works, the awful casting choice of Keanu Reeves.
I've seen many strange things already. Bloody wolves chasing me through some blue inferno.
Well, that's, I guess, one of the selling points, or one of the ways that he tried to get a studio interested in doing the movie was, we're going to have a hot young cast, you know, all these young, hip actors. And so that's how you end up with, I mean, Winona Ryder gave him the script, but then also Keanu Reeves. And both of them, Keanu Reeves gets a lot of shit for this movie. Winona Ryder's not much better.
Winona Ryder's great in it.
I don't buy her at all. Both of them come across like they're doing like a high school production. His bad English accent.
Oh, it's terrible. Well, Keanu had said, he's like, I just came off working on 3 movies. I was fucking tired and I didn't want to do this. Also, I think he's bad at ADR. I think I watched the movie and I'm picturing him in a booth, like looping the lines in.
Music. Those animals.
And he's doing his best to make it match, and that deadens his performance. And this is a theory.
Yeah.
But Keanu Reeves is Keanu Reeves. He's a likable actor.
Nobody dislikes Keanu Reeves, even when he gives terrible performances.
His performance in every movie is always the same. He's always Keanu Reeves. He never transcends beyond who he is.
Sure.
But, you know, he got to where he is from his looks. I don't mean to objectify a man, but, you know, he was and is a handsome man, and that's how he got his roles. And he's not a great actor.
I have offended you with my ignorance, Count.
He's a serviceable actor.
He's great in the right roles.
Yeah, they wanted Johnny Depp in his part.
Oh.
And the studio said, we want someone handsomer.
Wow.
Yeah, take that, Johnny
90s
Depp.
Johnny Depp, too. That's
I
surprising.
know, they're like, well, maybe there's other
Well, I guess
reasons.
92 was kind of before Johnny Depp really took off, right?
But yeah, he's terrible.
But the real thing they should have done is looked for good actors for the part.
Right.
Instead of going with hot young talent that we're going to put in so we can sell this movie to the kids.
Right. Well, then you have, you know, Billy Campbell, a.k.a. the Rocketeer, a.k.a. the outrageous O'Connor.
What about drunk? Ever do that? From alcohol. That is not possible for me, sir. Biddy?
And then you have Carrie Elways as Lord Arthur Homewood. And then Billy Campbell's playing like an American, like a Texan. And these characters are all in the book.
Yeah.
And that the book, it's pretty faithful to the book in terms of the
I think this is
storyline.
the only adaptation to have, because there's like 3 characters. It's, what's her name? Lucy's like kind of suitors.
Yeah.
And I think every other movie adaptation condenses them down to one character, because that's what you would do for a movie, to condense everything. But this movie's like, fuck it, we're throwing it all in.
Yeah, and their performances feel like stage play.
I feel like a blundering novice.
And then you have Gary Oldman and Sir Anthony Hopkins that are just light years beyond the young cast in terms of acting, where they are really giving it 100% and they're doing quality work, and everybody else feels like they're on the stage at your local community college theater.
Yeah, she was in great pain. Then we cut off her head and drove a stake to her heart and burned it, and then she found peace.
Doctor! Please.
But that segues us into, I think what I like about the movie is that in hindsight, watching it, and this is probably why it didn't connect to a lot of audiences, it is a blend of camp, 70s exploitation, and retro 1920s throwback film.
Yeah.
Like the 1922 Nosferatu with Max Schreck. Where it's
all the in-camera effects.
In-camera effects, the iris wipes, all the old school film trickery, and then a lot of like, especially the orgy scene.
Oh yeah.
You get like 70s like 70s film vibes from that, and so it's like he's putting in all these. He's not trying to make a contemporary film. He's making many references and nods to cinema.
Yeah. Yeah,
throughout the
not
decades.
just like the history of Dracula and previous Dracula movies, but yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's that whole scene where there's like the movie screen in the background.
That's my favorite scene.
And
in
it's,
the whole film.
the whole movie is sort of like, just like a celebration of the history of filmmaking and all
Right.
these techniques.
Yeah, there's even, I think when they introduced London and Dracula has arrived.
When he first sees Winona Ryder, they use an actual hand crank camera.
Yeah, there's an old timey.
And he said, Francis Ford Coppola said he wanted to do more of that. He seems to have a grudge against the cinematographer. There's a couple points in the commentary where he kind of is like, yeah, I wanted to do more of this, but the cinematographer just didn't want to.
Well, and the studio.
Maybe the studio too.
He wanted like no sets. He wanted very stripped down, like very bare bones locations where it was almost like a stage play.
I'm glad he didn't go that route because I love the big over the top sets.
The studio's like, no, you need proper sets. That's a big no. I think the proper balance of give and take happened because you don't want to. You're trying to make a commercially available, accessible film, and you don't want to go too artsy.
I made the most vulgar, entertaining, exciting, actionful, sensoramic, give them a new thrill every 5 minutes, have it everything, sex, violence, humor.
And I think that's probably what turned a lot of people off, is they're like, what's going on?
It's so stylized, When you see, I mean, the opening prologue, which is sort of a nod to Vlad the Impaler, who, of course, Dracula was based on,
right.
When we're seeing the battlefield, and it's literally just like shadow puppets, just little cardboard guys in the background.
It's a mixture of both. He wanted to do 100% shadow puppets.
Oh, okay.
There are a couple shots that are like flashed in there, but there are 2D actors silhouetted like being impaled and stuff.
Yeah.
All the shadow puppet stuff shows up in the cinematograph scene. You catch a glimpse of it and you see the little fight going on. It's like a puppet show.
Yeah.
That scene's so awesome. It's so unnerving when the wolf comes in. And then the gentlemen with the cigars are watching films.
They even show I think it's that classic train, footage.
Yeah, when everyone jumps out of the way. The train's coming. It's But then when things start getting like oddly erotic, then it cuts and there's like, not hardcore porno, but it's like more disturbing than early on. It was jokey.
Yeah.
There's like a guy and he's like thinking of like a younger attractive lady on his lap, and then she disappears and it's replaced with his wife, and he goes "Rawr, rawr," and it's more like vaudeville, goofy. But then it becomes like creepy, like pervert porn in the background, and you see it, and it's just like Dracula's presence just kind of alters reality and perceptions of reality, and there's so much.
Which is really exemplified in the first half of the movie in his castle.
Oh yeah.
Which is I feel like the first half of the movie is stronger than the second half. I like the whole movie, but all the stuff with his castle.
Oh yeah.
I love all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that really pops Keanu out.
We, Dracula's have a right to be proud. What devil or witch was ever so great as a killer whose blood flows in these veins?
Because I mean, like,
when you have scenes with Gary Oldman acting opposite Keanu Reeves, they're the only ones in the scenes, and it's just like, oof.
I don't know what his direction was, but he's literally like, he looks like Bill S. Preston Esquire.
He time traveled.
Reacting to some of the most fucked up things you could possibly see. Dracula shatters the mirror in front of him. I guess that happens in Transylvania. And he looks out the window. Dracula hears the wolves. He's going to go eat some wolves. And he looks out the window and he's crawling down the wall, defying laws of physics.
Yeah.
And he's like, huh. Early on, Dracula feeds him dinner. And then, Dracula's saying the story of his bloodline, the Order of the Dracula, and he's like, we fought for centuries, and all was lost.
Just giving a great performance.
And then, Keanu Reeves is like, oh, I guess so. Then he takes the sword out, and Keanu Reeves, I'm sorry, if I offended you. Cut.
I have offended you with my ignorance, Count.
Keanu Reeves, probably a classy dude.
Oh yeah, I got nothing against the
Seems
guy.
like a nice guy, but
it's just miscasts, which I think that's what this movie is probably most known for, which is a shame because everything else about it is so great. But I'll let anyone talk. Oh, Dracula, Keanu Reeves. Ew, that's like the first thing people think of.
And then that I don't know. You got the most amazing monster costumes in this movie, and then they can't get gray spray paint in the hair right.
They went to the costume shop and got the spray that we used for our George Lucas costume.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in the book, his hair goes white.
Sure.
And so it's like, well, yeah, you could cut that out because it's distracting and it's unexplained. Mm-hmm. Same with the blue flames.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, it's that was the only optical effect in the film. Everything else was in camera.
Everything else was in camera. Okay.
But the blue flames were like, oh, every now and then, Dracula will have weird blue flame that will indicate where treasure might be buried. Mm. And then so his like servants or his gypsy men or whatever they were described as, who are loyal to the death to Dracula for some reason, they're seen putting rocks where the blue flames are. So that
this is all in the book.
This is in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so during the day they could go back and try and dig up the treasure, but in the movie it's just like
it's just a blue flame for one scene. Yeah.
And then Mina has the power once she's infected with Dracula blood. She has the power to make the blue flames come up, and it's like, and I was almost like happy with the fact that it wasn't explained because it's you're taken into this world that you don't understand.
Yeah.
And we don't need an explanation. So before we talk about the details in the film, because the film for me works. I think one of my favorite things, and we don't have to talk about this in detail, but my favorite things is the score.
Oh yeah.
Fucking love. I had the soundtrack. I would just listen to the soundtrack.
Sure.
I love this music so much, and it's so appropriate.
It complements the movie in that it's also big. Everything is big.
But then the love parts, the love scores, the Mina's theme, and all it's great. It's great. It's so funny because movies nowadays, a lot of them I listen and
they're so generic. Yeah.
I don't even notice a score, and it's so perfect. And then the costumes too. They got a Japanese guy to do the costumes who had never seen Dracula and didn't know what it was. So that's why he's wearing,
perfect.
like when he jumps out of the crate at the very end of the movie, he's wearing kind of like a geisha robe.
Yeah.
And same with his classic red robe.
Yeah.
With this big
with the butt hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like geisha.
Oh
hair. And it's like
well, let's say like it complements the rest of the movie where it's such a combination of all these different styles and different things.
It's so
that don't clash. They end up working together because it's an unreal world.
Yeah, and it's not the cliche Dracula look.
Yeah,
as described in the book. He has a white mustache and he's old and he wears black. And obviously you have Bela Lugosi, Dracula with the widow's peak and the classic Dracula look.
That was the definitive Dracula look, where so many other movies that were made based on Dracula would go back to the Bela Lugosi movie.
With the collar,
yeah.
the cape, and this when you first see Dracula, you're like, oh my God, what is he wearing? That's so awesome, and it's so different. So that seems to be the goal in the movie, starting from Nosferatu and on, and all the different Dracula adaptations throughout the 70s and.
Well, that's what's interesting is when there's been something like this, that there's been so many different versions of it, and you try and make something that's super accurate to the book, a couple embellishments here and there, but then the things that you do add, like the love story aspect, and the idea of Mina being like the reincarnation of his old love, like. That's not from the books, but that has been in a previous adaptation of Dracula.
Right.
Is in the, I think like a 70s one with Jack Palance, where it's just like, it's been adapted so many times that all these things like leak into your mind when you're trying to write a new adaptation of it.
Yeah.
So all these different versions all kind of leak into it.
Well, when Bram Stoker wrote the book in 1897 or whatever, I don't even know, the thinking of movies and audience appeal and all that was not in their heads.
Right.
It was just like, I'm telling this story.
You can tell by the way it's written, the fact that it is like a pieced together series of journals and.
Yeah, I mean, it was a totally different time, and you don't think of, oh well, we have to have a love story, you have to have this, and that's just the modern twist on it. But yeah, so we have Mina. She's our final girl.
Yeah.
We have Lucy. She's searching for a husband. One might say she's a woman of loose morals.
Please let me touch it. It's so big.
Lucy morals?
Yeah, back
Lucy?
in the Victorian era, I guess you would say so, because they're looking at the pervert book.
She's reading, I don't know if it's the Kama Sutra or whatever.
So she's the perfect vampiress for him to seduce and infect.
That's why, and it was funny in rewatching this, I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I always remembered the Lucy character being played by Sherilyn Fenn from Twin Peaks, and it's not. And I was like, why was I thinking that was Sherilyn Fenn? And I realized it's because Sherilyn Fenn was in a movie where she fucks a wolfman that looks just like the wolfman from this movie. A movie called Meridian, like a low-budget, like full moon movie. I probably shouldn't be watching so many movies where people fuck wolfmen, but it happens.
Usually that's a one and done thing. It doesn't usually reoccur too often. But Mina is his prize. She is, Winona Ryder plays the original Elisabetta in the very beginning. That's his true love. I don't remember the opening of the Dracula novel. I don't think
the prologue in this, none of that's in the book.
The prologue.
None of the explicit comparisons to Vlad the Impaler.
Vlad the Impaler was like a horrific monster. I mean, he might have been fighting for territory or, in wars or whatever, but what he did to people, impaled them, and the gruesome, just awful. Yeah. In this, he does that, but...
It's treated as just him fighting in battle.
Yeah, but he does it for the church. He's a man of God, and he survives his battle, but the opposing armies shoot a letter into his castle that says, he had died in battle, which causes Mina to commit suicide.
To jump out the window and turn into a doll.
Right.
She's falling down.
Don't make fun of the visuals in this.
I love all of them. I'm making fun of them with love. They're great.
But
that transition, because she falls out of frame and then the camera dollies down, and that's without having to do any cuts or visual effects. Yeah. There's your doll falling down. It's wonderful. It's all great.
It's beautiful.
But it doesn't look realistic, which is again going back to why this maybe didn't connect with a lot of people.
If you're a fan of movies and the construction of movies, especially older ones, because there's a lot of matte paintings, there's miniatures, which are super obvious miniatures, the train, the Lucy's castle, there's so many of those kind of vintage effects, and vintage way of doing things.
I love the shot when Jonathan Harker's going to Dracula's castle, and you see his diary in the foreground and the train going by in the background, and it's clearly a miniature, but the fact that the train casts a shadow across the diary, which doesn't make any sense realistically, but that whole shot looks great.
To be able to get the shadow onto a little book like this wasn't gonna work. So Gene, my father, decided, well, what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to recreate the book 20 feet away. And then use the same train, put one light up, make a shadow of the smoke, and make it go across the book.
Like all these, and same with there's a shot where the map is superimposed over Keanu Reeves' face.
Oh yeah, they just projected it onto his face.
They did tricks like that.
Or rear screen projection out the window of the train.
Yeah, that shot with the eyes in the distance, that was all in camera.
Yeah.
With layers of things going on.
There was like a movie screen, and then we projected on that sky a plate of Dracula's eyes. When you see that in the theater, what you're seeing there all was done together. The background and the foreground was done together.
And there are shots where they do like multiple exposures,
Yeah.
where you film one element of it and then you literally reel back the footage and do another pass. So and then it's like, then it's done. The effect is done.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do after the fact. We
Right.
got it in camera.
Yeah, but then you have the tricks, the Keanu's shaving in the mirror, Dracula's coming up behind him, and then it's like, okay, well, there's a hole in the wall. That's Keanu. The back of the head is a look-alike.
Interestingly, on the commentary, Francis Ford Coppola points that moment out, and he's like, "This was an interesting effect. I don't remember how we did it."
You can just figure it out, Francis.
You made the movie.
Well, I think one of the more famous things from this movie is Dracula's shadow. Yeah, the shadow moves across and it like knocks over physical objects.
Mm-hmm.
I think it kills flowers at one point.
Yeah.
Which clearly would be a time lapse. Was it just a hand? Probably a robot hand that's on a thing. So
Yeah.
the flowers have to actually decay in time lapse.
Yeah.
So you want an actor standing there with their hand. It's probably a fake hand.
Just slowly.
And then they just have it like very slowly moving.
It was shot over the course of like 3 days or something. Yeah, I don't know about that specifically, but
filming one frame every minute.
yeah.
Beautiful.
And I always assumed all the shadow stuff it felt like it would be inspired by like the original Nosferatu or the old German Expressionism stuff. Apparently an inspiration for it too is another movie called Vampire with a Y, where it's not just shadow work, but it's the shadows moving out of step with what they're shadows of, which is directly what they do in this.
But getting back to the opening, Dracula, feels betrayed by God because, it's a Romeo Juliet kind of situation, but he stabs the cross with his sword and vows allegiance to evil.
The cross starts vomiting blood and it turns into a Sam Raimi movie.
Yeah. And so, then over time, he's a vampire. He's got to feed on babies. The town's babies.
Well, that's another.
That's from the book too.
Oh yeah, the feeding on babies.
The children disappearing from the villages.
Mm-hmm. But that becomes another theme of the movie too. Is he's this old, hundreds of years old being, kind of like from an older world, and that sort of clashed with more, for the time, kind of contemporary technology. There's lots of that in the movie. The insane asylum and. Telegraphs and all that stuff, the movie theater, and so it's sort of him entering this new age that he's not familiar with.
He's trying to find his true love, and
which the whole love story thing is interesting because you keep bringing that up as being like the driving force of the movie when that's not in the book at all.
No, it's a twist on it.
And that's the thing is like there's been so many versions of Dracula. If you're gonna make a new one, what can you do to make it distinct and stand out? And one is make it very close to the book, which this does, aside from the love story angle. And then two, I think, is also just make it super horny. This is a horny ass movie. Speaking of babies again. The scene where Keanu Reeves gets seduced by the three brides. The one in the middle, Monica Bellucci, who 10 years later would co-star with Keanu Reeves in the Matrix sequels.
Right, as Persephone.
Was that her name?
Yeah.
She was the lady next to the guy.
Oh, these actors cross paths at some point.
And then, I don't know, 10, 12 years later, you have Anthony Hopkins and Gary Oldman team up again in Hannibal and literally face off. Because Mason Verger's face gets chopped off.
Yeah, so Winona Ryder, she's in this big famous vampire movie, and then she goes on to be in another vampire movie, Reality Bites. I got jokes. I got jokes all day. I got jokes forever. You have a lot of plot stuff to deal with. There's Van Helsing, there's the three men, there's the...
Which I remember in the book, all that stuff being a bit of a slog.
Yeah.
All the characters
stuff.
Well,
the Jonathan Harker stuff is like the first half of the book.
Yeah.
It's been another 2 weeks, and I'm still stuck at the castle, and blah, blah, blah. But
I gotta fuck these women again. Ugh.
these demonic horrors, concubines of the devil. But there's 3 important scenes with Mina and Gary Oldman, Mina and Dracula, that are enough to satisfy that love story, which is there's the meet cute on the streets of London, with the famous "See me,
see me, see me now."
That's the you have to be Hungarian and double jointed.
Yes.
How do you do that? You must be double jointed, and you must be Hungarian.
How many times can we reference Ed Wood in our lives? But no. He buys the newspaper from the little boy in the reflection of the glass. You don't see him. There's those sweet touches. And then there's the scene where they have dinner and they drink the absinthe. Winona Ryder sucking on the sugar cube. It gets all erotic, and they bond. But the final scene is the turning scene. It's crescendoed into the turning scene, which is wonderfully shot. It's beautiful. There's the music, and then of course his ultimate demise, where you kind of feel sorry for Dracula.
Sure.
That's a lovely scene, except for the part where she kisses him as a bloody monster, right on the lips.
That's a great monster suit, though.
That was a risk.
Yeah.
Because I think in the theater everyone ew, and you're not supposed to say ew. That's true love. She doesn't care that he's a monster with bloody mouth. She'll smooch him. But yeah,
his demise at the end of the movie when they defeat him at the very end is an example of them kind of taking things from the book. It's similar to like Peter Jackson with Lord of the Rings, where it's like, we're going to take these things that are in the book, but we're just going to make them, much, much bigger. Because the book, they find his coffin, they open it, and they just kind of like stab him and cut his throat, and then he turns to ash immediately. And here, it's like he bursts out, and it's like a big epic fight scene.
But do you buy Gary Oldman as an irresistible love interest count that connects with Mina?
I do, sure, absolutely.
Because that's what the movie hinges on.
Because he's, it's partially his performance, but you have that contrast from the beginning where, with him like all old, and the old age makeup is great in this too. It's very detailed. It's very like layered. You can see like the veins under the skin and like spots on it, but that contrast between that and then him when he's young, which I guess is a nod to the book. He has a little mustache, so, and just because Gary Oldman's one of the best actors, so he sells you on it, I think.
Yeah.
I think the weaker part of that dynamic is Winona Ryder. I don't think she can, lesser than Keanu Reeves, but when you have scenes with just the two of them, I think he's just acting circles around her.
Well, of course he is, but I think she's still good in it.
I don't hate Winona Ryder, by the way. I know the last time we talked about her was probably Stranger Things, which I thought she sucked on. In general, I have nothing against her. I just, I think she's outshined by a lot of the other actors in this movie.
Have you got a 9.5?
I can't say enough good things about this movie. How do you feel about its accessibility in 2021?
I mean, the fact that all the effects are done in camera, I think, makes it hold up, where you don't have a bunch of dated optical effects and shit.
Yeah, I think if you know the backstory and the intention.
Sure.
If you watch it cold and just go, oh my God, that looks bad.
Look at all those background warriors in the opening scene. They look like shadow puppets.
Right. And that matte painting looks fake, or that looks like a miniature train. But yeah, if you look at it from the perspective, there was only one optical effect. Everything else, done. They took the time to blend all these elements while they were filming.
But that's what I think makes it hold up better than, especially a lot of effects-heavy movies from the early 90s.
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
No, nothing beats an in-camera effect, even if it looks bad. I'll take it over CGI something or other from 1992.
Oh, yeah.
Unless we're talking about a T-Rex.
Sure.
then yay. But if we're talking about a water bottle floating around the event horizon, let's film your water bottle.
Put it on a string.
Put it on a string.
Mm-hmm. But I think the fact that the movie is a period piece too, that lends to the style. Everything works together, right? Except for Keanu Reeves.
It's almost a fairy tale.
Well, it works. It's a lot of the effect shots. A lot of like the second unit director was Roman Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola's son, who went on to work on a bunch of Wes Anderson movies. And those also, like if you look at like Grand Budapest Hotel, where you have intentional miniatures. I mean, it's similar to this, where it's like, yeah, it doesn't look real, but it works for the story.
It works for the kind of movie it is.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work in The Matrix.
No. Have a bunch of little puppets in the background of The Matrix, yeah. Well, I think it's a testament. I mean, it does follow the book pretty closely, and it's a testament to the fact that before this, there was so many adaptations of Dracula, and after this version, I think there's like a BBC TV movie, and that's kind of it. But there was, I mean, from the 30s to the 70s into the 80s, there were so many different adaptations of it. And then this one came out, and they're like, well, how do you top that? Again, it's like Peter Jackson. It'd be like somebody now trying to do another adaptation of the Lord of the Rings books. It's like, you can't go any bigger than that.
Yeah.
I think the only other way to go would be more of like a minimalist, like A24 type movie, like really small and atmospheric and creepy. I know Robert Eggers, who did The Witch, was attached to do an adaptation of Nosferatu, which is always weird to me, because the original Nosferatu is just an adaptation of Dracula, but then there was a remake of that by Werner Herzog in the 70s, and then to do another remake of Nosferatu, where it's, well, Nosferatu is just Dracula. I guess the only difference is the look of the vampire.
Yeah, IMDb lists a Nosferatu with Anna Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, that was Robert Eggers. I think that fell apart. I don't think it's actually happening now.
I mean, there's just tons of material about vampires and the lore and all that in TVs and movies and whatever. But yeah, you're right. An actual film about the character of Dracula, digging deeper into him than just the stereotypical Bela Lugosi. I am Dracula, and I'm here to suck your blood. And this is what pushed that further and made him into a tragic character as opposed to just a blood-sucking vampire monster.
Yeah,
and pulled off the love story element. Technically, it's a great film. Visually, sound design, sets, production design, everything's great about it. Most of the acting.
You got two of the best actors of all time in it.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves, of course, being one of them.
Right. It ages like a fine wine. Can we cut that?
And I never drink wine.